When I was 26, I got engaged to my college sweetheart, John, and we planned to marry after a year. However, just a week before our wedding, John eloped with my stepsister, Mia, leaving only a letter explaining his actions. He revealed that he and Mia had been having an affair shortly after our engagement and believed it was unfair to marry me as he had fallen in love with her. Devastated, I was left to deal with the aftermath, while John's parents, embarrassed by their son's actions, covered the full costs of our planned wedding. My family, particularly my stepfather, who raised me since I was very young, was furious. My stepfather, who is the only father figure I've known, even considered hiring a detective to locate John and Mia to demand explanations. Mia, who had always been unkind to me since our parents met when we were in school, continued her pattern of causing me distress. Our home life was a constant battle with her behaviour, which escalated to bullying throughout our school years. Despite my parents' attempts to curb her actions, Mia remained defiant and unaffected by any disciplinary efforts. Her behaviour worsened into adolescence, marked by troublesome actions like smoking, drinking, and eventually legal troubles that led to her being sent to a rehabilitation centre for troubled teens. This intervention by my parents was aimed at correcting her path and restoring peace at home. Now, years later, after not hearing from them since they left, John and Mia have suddenly reappeared, facing financial difficulties and seeking employment at the family 60 shoe factory, a position once intended for Mia. This turn of events has brought them back, seeking help from the very family they once turned their backs on. She transferred to a new school by our sophomore year, close to the rehabilitation centre where she was being treated, and moved in with her aunt. During those years apart, I rarely thought of her. She had been my main tormentor in school, and I wasn't keen on keeping tabs on her progress. My parents often visited her and would ask if I wanted to join, but I always declined. After she left, her friends started ignoring me too, which, to my surprise, made my high school life much more enjoyable as it freed me from constant bullying. When she returned after we had graduated, she was the first to extend an olive branch, apologising for her past behaviour. She seemed genuinely calmer and more mature, so I decided to forgive her. With college on the horizon for both of us, it felt like the right time to let bygones be bygones. We moved to different cities for college, only returning home for the holidays. During these times, I noticed a significant change in her demeanour towards me. Instead of the cold hostility of the past, she now simply acknowledged my presence without further engagement. It wasn't warm, but it was far better than the alternative. Our parents noticed the shift too, but chose not to push for a deeper reconciliation, understanding the complexity of our past. A year into my relationship with John, I brought him home for Thanksgiving. It was during this visit that I noticed Mia engaging more in family conversations, especially with John. This was unusual given her previous indifference. After John and I had been dating for a while, Mia began reaching out more, initiating conversations, a complete turnaround from her previous behaviour. Confused and slightly suspicious, I confronted her about her intentions, wondering if her sudden interest in friendship was linked to John. She laughed off my suspicions, explaining that John's stories about his close relationship with his siblings had inspired her to mend our relationship. She admitted that she had blamed me for her troubles for a long time, but had come to realise that her actions were her own doing. She was now making a genuine effort to integrate better into the family, starting with a heartfelt apology to me. Moved by her sincerity, I chose to forgive her fully and embrace this new phase of our relationship. We began to rebuild our connection, meeting regularly and engaging more at family gatherings. By the time I got engaged, Mia and I were on good terms, and she had even met John personally before our engagement announcement. She was actively involved in the wedding preparations, and although we weren't the closest of friends, our relationship had improved significantly from our troubled past. At family events and other gatherings, she and John behaved normally, and nothing seemed amiss, allowing me to trust in the genuine nature of her transformation. She transferred to another school during our sophomore year, settling near the rehabilitation centre under her aunt's care. For a long while, I didn't hear from her or see her, partly because I wasn't eager to keep up with someone who had made my earlier school years difficult. Although my parents visited her regularly and invited me along, I always refused. After she left, her circle of friends ignored me too, which unexpectedly made my high school experience much more pleasant as the bullying stopped. Upon returning after graduation, she immediately apologised for her past actions. She seemed genuinely changed and more serene, prompting me to forgive her as we prepared to head to different colleges. Our encounters thereafter were limited to holiday visits, during which she was noticeably nicer, or at least no longer hostile. It wasn't perfect, but it was an improvement. Everything seemed normal, even after I got engaged. She and my fiancé John appeared to get along well, and there was nothing to suggest anything amiss. That changed dramatically when, just a week before the wedding, both she and John disappeared together, leaving me devastated and embarrassed. Despite my parents' willingness to intervene, I chose to let them go, seeking to move past the betrayal rather than dwell on it. In the weeks that followed, I focused on work and sleep, avoiding the pain of the betrayal. However, the situation escalated when Mia sent a postcard from California, not only rubbing her happiness with John in my face, but also making it clear she wasn't sorry. It dawned on me then that she had never truly forgiven me for the past and had been using our renewed friendship to get closer to John. Following this realization, I sought therapy to cope with the betrayal and address my emerging trust issues. Mia's continued postcards flaunting her life with John only ceased when I consistently ignored them. Our parents, disgusted by her actions, severed all ties with her, forfeiting her potential inheritance of her father's 60 shoe factory. Despite my academic background in history, my father offered me the chance to learn the 60 shoe factory ropes and take over from Mia. I embraced the challenge, and after several years of hard work, I was promoted as he retired. Now, managing the 60 shoe factory successfully, I've found fulfillment and have largely moved past my earlier turmoil. The irony of Mia and John reaching out for help after their cruel antics was not lost on me. Just recently, amidst a quiet weekend at home, I was startled by frantic doorbell ringing, which I first mistook for a pizza delivery. I had just ordered lunch, so when the doorbell rang, I assumed it was the delivery. However, when I opened the door, instead of the delivery person, I found Mia standing there, looking distressed and decidedly out of place. She was dressed in worn, faded clothes that had clearly seen better days. Her jeans were too short, and she appeared visibly thinner, as if she hadn't been eating well. As I stood there, taking in her dishevelled appearance, it was clear she was here to ask for help. Despite her past betrayals, part of me wasn't surprised she'd turned up like this. But I had already decided that no matter her plea, my answer would be an unwavering no. Mia wasted no time. She explained that she and John had fallen on hard times after he lost his job months ago. Instead of job hunting, he had turned to drinking. Mia, having quit her job to personal assistant after they moved together, found herself unemployable due to the significant gap in her resume. She had heard through relatives that I had taken over the family shoe factory after our father retired, and now she was here, hoping I would offer John a job. She apologised for her past actions, claiming she had come directly to me, bypassing our parents, because she knew I was kind-hearted and believed I wouldn't turn her away in her time of need. Her audacity to assume I'd help after everything was almost laughable. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief at her entitlement, and told her bluntly that I don't employ cheaters. Then I shut the door in her face, half prepared to call the police if she lingered on my property. Thankfully, she left without further incident. After she left, the first thing I did was call our parents to inform them about her visit. They mentioned hearing rumours that Mia was back in town, albeit without John. Our small town's tight-knit community meant news travelled fast, and it didn't take long to confirm she'd been staying with a high school friend who likely informed her about my new role in the family 60 shoe factory. Days after her visit to me, Mia decided to approach our parents, possibly to garner sympathy or support by portraying me as heartless. However, she miscalculated. My father firmly stated that the 60 shoe factory was now under my jurisdiction, and I had full autonomy to make decisions. My mother reminded Mia of her deceitful past, emphasising that she had forfeited any right to our help, especially after sending those taunting postcards. Mia attempted to defend herself, claiming she was a changed person, but our parents were unmoved. They asked her to leave, no longer willing to associate with her. She reacted poorly, throwing a tantrum and accusing them of always favouring me, labelling me the golden child. This only solidified their stance, and they reiterated that she was no longer welcome, closing the door on any potential reconciliation. She confided in my father, expressing her hurt over how, despite being his daughter, she felt neglected and overshadowed by me. She argued that I seemed to be his only concern and that she was deemed worthless to him. In response, my father mentioned that he had been more lenient with her than most parents would ever be, but she dismissed this, insisting it didn't change her situation. She felt robbed of opportunities, like running the family 60 shoe factory, a position she believed was rightfully hers, but I had ostensibly flaunted. She also brought up John's choice to be with her over me, questioning why she was the one suffering consequences for his affections. Her sent postcards, she claimed, were sincere attempts at apologising, not schemes to upset me. This revelation has lingered in my mind, especially since there's truth to her supposed inheritance of the 60 shoe factory, which she lost due to her own missteps, not because of any manipulation on my part. I never urged my father to exclude her and hand everything to me. It was his decision alone. Yet, it seems unjust that she blames me, branding me as the favoured child, which isn't true. However, I understand her perspective, especially if she believes her exile was a result of my complaints about her behaviour. It's a significant action for a parent to take, and while it wasn't easy on my father, it wasn't his fault or mine. If he hadn't intervened, Mia's path might have been far darker. As for the postcards, I doubt they were genuine apologies. They seem more like a cover-up. Despite everything, I do feel sympathy for her, particularly given her husband's failures, which she now has to rectify. Coming to me for help must have been hard for her, and part of me regrets my harshness. Now that I have everything and she has little, I pity her, which is just part of my nature. Time has passed and I no longer want to hold a grudge, but I also don't see a way to assist her financially or by offering jobs. The most I can extend is my sympathy, even after all the turmoil she caused. Most wouldn't even feel that. The realisation that the 60 shoe factory should have been hers makes me question my role, wondering if this success is a form of revenge. These feelings, combined with doubts like imposter syndrome, leave me conflicted. Refusing to employ my ex-fiancé, who ran off with my stepsister, is tough now that they're in need, and the advice I receive is divided, leaving me more confused. I've turned to my parents, who always guide me through troubles. They reminded me that we've done all we could for Mia. If she's not ready to change, there's little more we can do. My father had every intention of passing on the 60 shoe factory to her if she had behaved and been a supportive family member. Her actions, however, have excluded her from these plans and from the family dynamic. As my father and I agree, it's unreasonable to expect any different under these circumstances. After talking with my parents, I usually feel much better, so I've decided to let go of any unnecessary guilt about past actions. It's been a week since Mia showed up unannounced at my house, and we hadn't heard from her after she visited my parents, until today. She unexpectedly arrived at my workplace, causing quite a scene. She knows the layout well from her childhood, so she bypassed security and positioned herself in front of my office, loudly accusing me of stealing the family shoe factory by playing the obedient daughter and, allegedly, framing her for childhood bullying to solidify my status as the favoured child. She claimed the shoe factory should have been hers, and accused me of keeping her out because I was jealous of her relationship with John. She said I couldn't handle not being the centre of attention and turned our parents against her. When I heard the commotion, I went to see what was happening and called security. I tried to calm the situation, but she continued her tirade until security escorted her out. I called my dad to discuss whether to involve the police, and he, furious, advised me to proceed. The police found her near the building, and she was charged with trespassing and disturbing the peace. Minor offences, but still damaging to her record. I told my dad about the charges, and while I expected him to be upset, he was only exasperated, expressing his weariness with her antics. It's tough on him, dealing with the constant blame for Mia's choices, which are often self-inflicted. 5 days have passed since the incident, and it seems Mia has returned to California. We thought she might retaliate following her arrest, but my dad discovered through some inquiries that she was seen at the airport. It's a relief to think she might stay away for a while. I'm not optimistic about her sorting things out with John or finding support elsewhere. I hope for their sake they find employment and become self-sufficient, because if they don't, they might return and cause more trouble. For now, I am just relieved to have a break from the drama